guys, welcome back to Navigating Neva. And tonight we have with us Wes King and we have special guest Tom Ford.
That's right, Nicole. And real quick, I gotta say, if you're not watching this, you should, because every week our introductions get better, from a few weeks to the audio to now to the visual and now to the guest. Tom Ford joins us. Originally spent some time in New York and now many years in Indianapolis, a veteran guard with deep roots in the aquatics field. He's still training guards. He's got a lot of different years of experience and skills, and we're excited to have him to talk about his aquatic journey and what he's learned and what he's been doing along the way.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into tonight's episode, we're going to do a little bit of homework, and we promised all of our viewers tonight that we were going to do our drawing from season 1. So we're going to spin the wheel, and then we're going to let Tom announce the winner. Or, I will tell him to tell us, Tom can let us know when to stop. You guys ready?
I'll close my eyes. Stop.
And I'll put my glasses on.
All right. Well, our winner is Trina. So
all right.
I will get her contact after the show and get this stuff to her, because that's who gets our prize for tonight. So we're going to minimize that screen so we can see all of our people for tonight. Let's see.
Long time fan of Trina. Well deserved. She's works hard in the industry.
That is great to hear. All right. Well, I think I'll leave us like that with that pretty picture. Can you guys see that? Is that what you guys see?
Yep.
Awesome.
Well done.
Yeah. So tonight we have with us Tom, and Tom was vacationing here. Is that what you were doing, Tom?
Well, yeah, we were supposed to be, but both my wife and I worked more than we should have.
Well, I think we all know that, right?
We did make time to enjoy St. Simon's. It was wonderful.
It is very beautiful. So when Tom was here, we got together, and as all aquatic professionals do, I think we always talk about, the old days, the good old days. So before we get into tonight's episode, I wanted to let everybody know we just wrapped up our Lifeguard series, season 2, that was all about lifeguarding, and then we wanted to feature some guests. And when Tom was here, we were talking about all things aquatics, and tonight what we have coming up is the changes, the evolution of the lifeguard changing, how it's changed over time, what it takes to lead the team, things that we'd bring back if we could, and things like that. So we're just going to dive right into our conversations tonight and get going. So, Wes, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'll say this, Tom. We short-sighted introduction. So if you want to give the world a little bit of background on yourself, I teased Indianapolis. I teased the fact that in a few minutes we bonded over Pat McAfee in Wisconsin, a few other things. But tell us more about yourself real quick, which will give the audience some background on what we're going to talk about.
Well, my name's Tom Ford. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I've been lifeguarding since I was 15. So that's, believe it or not, 45 years. And I've taught and been a lifeguard in New York and in Indiana. And over those years, I have seen a lot of changes that have occurred from when I did it as a kid to what's going on today. Some good things, some things not so good. So, but yeah, I've been in water fitness and athletic training and as an EMT. So I have a lot of experience both with safety and health. And so tonight we get to talk about safety, which is okay with me.
And lakefront too, if I'm not mistaken, right? Some beach water as well.
Yeah, I was a lakefront administrator for over 2 different times, over 20 years.
Right.
Teaching life-saving, teaching swimming lessons, and running a beachfront.
2 different environments in New York and in Indianapolis, 2 different worlds for sure. So kudos to you. And thank you for that. And you're right. That's why we do this, to have that historical perspective, but also that real life today, quote unquote, modern, if you will, understanding. So thank you very much. Yeah,
absolutely.
So to that, go ahead, Nicole, please.
Well, no, enough. I just love it all. I was just happy you guys were both here and talking, and that this podcast exists. And I wanted to say, none of us are here representing any agencies, is why I was chuckling.
Yeah, fair. We could all put letters behind our names and the mixed letters around. So I guess I'll jump into it, but minus the duck pluck and maybe trying to have our airways open in the middle of the 5 foot deep water with no rescue tubes. Is right there it is. Are there any things that stand out specifically that kind of bring back memories that go, wow, this is something that was really cool. This was a test we used to do, or vice versa, something we do now that we're like, oh, I just don't know about this.
I don't know if this podcast is long enough for the soapbox I could get on.
Touche. Well played.
No, there have been a lot of changes. And I would, in all honesty, I think one of the best ones and one of the adds to safety. I do believe that the rescue tube is a very good invention and does add a level of safety to the lifeguard that we didn't have when I was younger. That said, I would say, in my opinion, in my experience, I think one of the bars that has been lowered significantly is the skill level of swimming that a lot of guards don't have, whichever way you want to look at it, go through and actually pass life saving because with the skill sets they have, which are, by my standard, by what I was trained with, a lot lower.
Well played. Two things. It's a safe space. And also, you're spot on when you talk about the word innovation and invention. And by no means am I trying to date you or myself or even my mother, who was a lifeguard. But rescue tubes are different. The basic tools that we use, if you wouldn't mind, and I know Nicole had a thought, so I apologize. But would you mind kind of giving a history on maybe your experience with the rescue tube itself and how you've seen it grow or not grow as a part of your personal or professional involvement? Because I've been there too, with the handheld, with the 8-footer, with the 1-footer, with the one you could chew through. If you wouldn't mind just talking about, because I think it's relevant for today's generation to know it wasn't always like this.
You're asking me?
Please, yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, some of the things that you just mentioned, I've never heard of, to be honest.
I was being sarcastic about. I've had really long rescue tubes. I've had really short rescue tubes.
Right, I got you.
Yeah.
No, I got you. When I first started doing this in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have a rescue tube.
There we go.
At the beachfront, we did have, depending on the beachfront you were at, you might have a hard plastic buoy, if you will, that you could go in the water with. That was about the only thing that you could carry. The only other thing that you would throw in the water would be a ring buoy.
Check.
We didn't even have rescue boards. Depending on the lake, you might have a surfboard, if you will, surfboard-like. So you could sit on that in the deep end of the swimming area. And so you'd have a guard in the water on something like a surfboard. Back in the day, it was all literally hands-on. I mean, you had things like cross-chest carry.
There we go.
We did a stroke called the side stroke. I don't know if anybody today knows what that is.
Yeah. Keep going. Fireman's carry. Yeah. Beach drags. Yes, sir.
I was actually talking to my wife before you got on tonight. She was a lifeguard also at a camp that she went to. And she reminded me, one of the things that we would do, if you were going in for a active victim, you would swim out to them, stop, do a quick reverse, and then dive down under the water, go under the swimmer, and then get them from behind. And you were taught that if they happen to turn around, you were taught tuck, duck, and suck, which I think is still used today, but not as prevalent. And so you had a lot of those things, and you would grab the person, you'd reach over their shoulder.
The reverse huggy, the rear huggy. Yeah. Sorry. Keep going. Yeah.
Those are just some of the things that we did back in that day. I mean, actually, one of the other things that was a big thing that today, watching lifeguards, drives me crazy, is we were taught how to survive in the water or swim in the water with clothes on, and how to use jeans in your shirt, and how to blow them up and make them
Boy Scout stuff. Boy Scout
stuff. Exactly.
Yes, sir. Yes.
They don't teach that anymore.
Check.
And I see guards almost every day, even in indoor pools. They'll have sweatpants on, they'll have shoes on, sweatshirt on. And one, I know they don't have any experience swimming with clothes on, which is very different. And so two, if they jump in the water to get somebody out of the water, I'm afraid to find out what would happen.
Fair, fair. I cut you off last time, Nicole. Please go ahead on anything you took away from that,
Well, that was
because that was
lot.
awesome.
That was a lot. Yes. Yeah, that was a lot. Well, Tom and I both were talking when he was here, and we both currently train, and I think that not a lot of people still train waterfront. And in our last series, we didn't talk a lot about that, but I do waterfront training here. Last week we had James on with me, and James and here it didn't show us on the clip, but Sea Island is a beach right here by us. They have a guy, he trains, we all do the waterfront, and it's Red Cross waterfront. So some of that stuff that you talked about, like the beach drag, it is there. So some stuff is old school and it's gone from the lifeguarding, but it's still in the waterfront. But what I like, and what I liked when Tom came, was guards that I see that come up that are older and recertifying. And we see this a lot where I am, because I get people that are working at the base. So you get a lot of retired guys or a lot of veterans that just want to still guard. I mean, like I'd still guard. Tom, before we started recording, said he'd lifeguard. And a lot of people are, they don't want to lifeguard, but a lot of people still will. You see these old skills,
Yes.
but not new people don't know what they are.
I think that's, and again, every time we do this podcast, I say it again. Nicole, Mama says, if you hear something more than twice, pay attention. I'll say it again. That's why we're doing this podcast. And I think, and again, Tom, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but all the things you ran through that a lot of people listening may have never heard of, the terminologies and the exercise, are real. And I think it's really important for this era, this decade of generation of people to understand that we don't have it as bad as we think we have it. It's not as hot, right? To your point, from the testing to the requirements to the materials to the expectations. I was an auditor. I used to be able to put my camera in the stroller before you'd get arrested for being the weirdo hiding in the bushes. Right now, you can't do that. This is the '90s. You can't. There's my generation. To your point, Tom, of we had to do audits with VHS tapes on site, and if you failed, you're kicked out. So the point being is, there's a lot of good updates. Yep. And a lot of good enhancements that you didn't have when you started. I didn't have when I started. And my takeaway to this, my line item here is, if you're an aquatic director, you're an aquatic manager, take stock in what you have. Take stock in your first aid kit. Take stock in your backboard. Take stock in all the things you didn't know what Tom was talking about, and call Tom, and we'll give you an inventory list of a 1987 pool deck, and you can cross out. My point is, you've got some stuff in your back pocket. Audience that's listening, use it to your advantage.
Absolutely.
And don't always worry about what you don't have. Anyway, so
great advice. Yeah. Great advice.
Well, because I used to always worry about what I don't have, so now I've learned to kind of take what what you're talking about and going, all right, I got this, etc. So very good. Yeah. And I guess I'll lead to the next part. You touched on it, Tom. I think it's worth revisiting. Is what's missing. The rescue tube, and I'll say the ability to use it underwater. How many of today's generation know what it takes to pull on that cord and pull yourself up from a 10-foot well and feel your torn labrum and feel your torn rotator cuff and feel the weight of another person's body and do it over and over? We do it one time, we pass.
Right.
We do it. Anyway, I'm not going to get too picky on the details, but I see both of your head nodding, so I'll just kind of hand it over. But what else have you seen in some of the things we don't push as hard as maybe we should or we'd like to?
In my experience, what I have seen is the lack of urgency.
Check that box, sir.
I think that is probably one of the biggest missing pieces that kids don't learn today, or lifeguards going through for the first time especially don't learn today. They don't understand how easy it is for a child to take over an adult and put both of them under the water, and that urgency is not taught. They don't get that message.
Did you have to do the circle of death in the diving well, where the instructor would come on you and jump on your back, and you'd have to reach out and push out of them? And to some degree, did you ever have to do the shark tank with that? Right. As a lifeguard, we felt that.
When I was in college, it was the second time I got a WSI. I did it in high school, and then I did it in college. And my final, I had to do that with 5 lifeguards. They were either active victims, they would jump you, whatever. And then we had to do it a sixth time with they would bring somebody in that probably knew more about the water than the fish did. This guy
Yeah.
had more body control, was about my size,
Yes.
wasn't a big guy. He did have he had weights on his diving weights on his waist, but not crazy. And his thing was he didn't thrash around. He didn't, if you got him in a cross chest, you had to get him to the side of the pool and you had to get his hands on the deck to take him out. If you let go of your cross chest just that
Yes.
much, he would slip out of your hands and go straight to the bottom of the diving well, and you had to go get him and do it again.
Yes. So we used to do that with wrestlers, and the wrestlers A, can't swim, and B, love to grab you and choke you.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we would bring the wrestling team in and say, your job is to choke out the lifeguard trying to pass this test. And if you, anyway, not to cut you off, but I love the specificity of every detail you described, not just the whole story, but every line item of the hand holding and the don't let go and the touching. That level, I think, is being missed, not just the urgency, right?
Right.
But the detail in what happens if any one of those steps is missed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to tell a story on that. So the video in the beginning showed us Massingale, and if anybody types in St. Simon's Island, I don't think it comes up, but the beach on St. Simon's Island is Massingale. And a few years back, after the guards had left for the day, there was a little girl. She was 2 or 3, and she was drowning. And she's alive today. And 2 adults drowned going to save her. And that's what Tom and I talked about when we got together. And I teach lifeguarding to this day, and Tom does too. And there's not a big emphasis that stresses that a small child can make a difference in your life in the water. So
those double rescues, two victims solo rescue,
right,
should have been one of the hardest tests in my day. And if you could not pass two victim rescue, you couldn't pass. And sorry to cut you off, Nicole, I'm such a bastard, but that just hit such a point with me because I have visceral memories of being the one trying to get that second victim out who just made a living on going to the bottom of the pool.
yeah.
Because they're an adult, right? And that's what adults do. They sink.
Is that still taught today?
Multiple victim rescue is, but not
Okay.
in the so how
Probably not taught like we taught it.
And you come up with your tube between you and the victim. It's not taught in the same. The checkoff skill is there, but it's not the same skill practice that we were used to running. If that makes sense.
Okay. Sure.
It sounds like I'm retooting the rookies and rescues presentation we have, but Tom, I have a 45-minute presentation. It's called Rookies and Rescues, and the whole idea is when you're in that chair, it's like, the Notre Dame had to sign, play like a champion. You have the mentality in the chair. The second is we all have a plan until we get punched in the face, Mike Tyson quote. Right. And teaching people that energy that we feel when the SHIT hits the fan is, I don't think that, like you hit the nail on the head, that urgency is just missing, that 2-minute drill. Anyway, great moment. I would argue that one of the reasons is because the instructors themselves, and again, there's great instructors, I'm talking to 2 of them, don't have the same experiences maybe that we've had, and they're more of the teachers, the administrative, their clinical teaching versus experienced teaching. I don't know if you guys have walked across that recently.
Absolutely. Yep.
The years just aren't behind the belt, and I need to teach a class, and I'm an instructor, and I've got a certification to do it, and it's cool. But that leaves that lifeguard with a piece of paper, but not a lot of depth.
Right.
Yeah. So understood. Okay. What's next, Nicole?
So what's next is, where do you guys feel that the disconnect is between the certifications and the readiness, and how can we bridge this gap? We were actually talking about this in my office today with my director, who she's a basketball, not an aquatics. So
it's a great analogy there, though, right? Yeah, she wouldn't give the 9th person on the 6th person on the bench the ball at the last 2 minutes because they're not ready.
Well, she knows enough, and I'll tell you, I'll try to say verbatim what she said today, because it kind of lead into what we're going to. She said a few years back they had a mom that signed up the kid, or maybe the kid signed up. They go over there for lifeguard tryouts and they come back and they're like, "Oh no, I'm not going to make it." And she goes, "What do you mean you're not going to make it?" She goes, "Well, lifeguarding's not for me." She goes, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, it's too much swimming." She goes, "What did you think it was?" She goes, "Well, I thought I was just going to sit in my suit and look cute." And she goes, "Well, what if they were
Some of us do.
trouble?" And she goes, "Well, I was just going to throw the thing to them." So I think that right there
Throw
is
the
the
thing
question
to them.
here. Like,
That's the title of my book.
right. Well, and I think that's the disconnect in the readiness. Some people don't, they think pool lifeguard and they think if there's a pole or there's a ring buoy and you see those at pools, you see them in public pools. Why do I need to swim if as a lifeguard I can just do a toss? Like, why is swimming a skill? Why is it necessary?
That's, in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why the bar has been lowered so significantly.
Keep going. So I mean, literally and figuratively. Please expand if you would. Yeah.
Well, as you're talking about, we have to swim. I have watched more trainings in the last, I don't know, 15 years. And I won't go into where the bar was and to where the bar is, but I will say this, that the prerequisite to be able to swim has been diminished to the fact that stroke efficiency or type of stroke efficiency is not taught, is not expected. And technically you're not supposed to stop. That does not stop the instructors from passing these people. And believe it or not, I've seen wannabe lifeguards doggy paddle to
check that box
to do their 300 meters or 300 yards, and they're not given a time limit. Right. And I'm sorry, if you can't save yourself, how the blank are you going to save somebody else?
That's a gap. That's a gap
gap
physically, mentally. That's a gap before they get in the pool.
Right.
That's a gap of even signing up for class. That's a gap of, do I even belong in this body of water in a swimsuit? Like, it goes all the way back to, how do I even prepare? And I think you're spot on. I mean, I have memories of doing class and having people that are teaching class for 30 years that maybe couldn't pass the class today, but know what's expected and would kick you out if you stopped.
Right.
Like, that's just it. Now, I'm not saying the instructor could pass the class today, but the instructor didn't let the riffraff tolerate, right? And so there's a level of respect to that. And I think you're kind of saying the same thing, Tom, is that if the standards are lower, then let's teach harder. If the standards are going to get lower, then let's make sure whatever we can do to get people into the standard and at least meet the lower standard or whatever it's defined as, in a way that we're not shortening the experience, in a way that's still meaning something when we sign the card. Because there's some weak spots.
Well, there are two things. One, Nicole, you had just mentioned that there are lifeguard tryouts. One, I think that's fantastic. I think you're setting the standard, which is phenomenal. And so keep that up. The other one, to the standard, I actually had a lifeguard instructor, administrator of a pool that I've worked with here in Indiana, say, you have to teach to the standard. And I said, wait, no, you teach to the standard or test to the standard, something, but basically teach to the standard. I'm like, but if the standard has lowered, why don't you teach above the standard?
That's you saying it better than I am. Thank you. You're saying it better than I am.
I don't get it.
We have to teach harder. We are, as an instructor, we have to know that what's in front of us might not cut the mustard. And so we can't let anything of the baseline lower. I mean, I hate to quote Bill Belichick, but like, if you don't run the route right, you're not going to pass. And if you can't do more than doggy paddle, we have a problem. And Nicole, I think, again, you're right on the right track. But if you started this class, what can I do what support do I have from my organization as an instructor or an instructor trainer to pull this individual aside and say, hey, I'll meet with you in the morning. Hey, I'll get a student with you at lunchtime. Hey, you're close, but the book says I can't, or I don't have enough time, or I'm only paid to do this, or I don't have the pool for this many hours. Back in my day, if you were close or you had enough effort to try, somebody was going to all tides raise the boats. And there was more of a supportive network, I felt, maybe, if that makes sense.
Well,
I don't know.
I think the level of accountability has been lowered.
Better way of saying it. Yes. All right. Fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think some things have become more of a job. But on that note, I want to turn it a little bit because I was always given a negative shift towards Boy Scouts of America. And I want to point out or
Oh.
have a discussion about this because this is not the book Tom had, but this is the book I was telling Tom about when we met. This book I love. I got on eBay. Can you see it?
Okay. It's there's a glare on it.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know how to show it
Okay.
to you. Oh, I don't know
I've,
where there it is.
yeah.
Oh, there
Oh,
you
yeah.
go.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah. I remember
so
that book.
okay,
Oh,
so
I
this
wow.
remember
book,
that book.
this is before, like obviously way before me, but I marked in here when you guys were talking, and people would come to me, and you know, Red Cross, what is it called? Red Cross will honor other certificates, and people would
Right.
always kind of frown upon Boy Scouts of America. But I had boys, so they went boys through Boy Scouts of America. And if you look back in this book, and then you look at Boy Scouts of America, they do so much stuff with the old school standard of training. So it's not that they were bad, it's that they weren't upgrading and upgrading and upgrading like Red Cross was. So there was the old school with the line and tinder, and you say that now, and people don't even know what that is. But if you get a Boy Scout, they can do it. And I think Boy Scouts actually just got rid of theirs, and now you can go to Red Cross. But what I'm looking at in here is what you guys were just talking about. This is stuff Boy Scouts was teaching and we're not. So it's got defenses, it's got the block and turn, block and carry. None of this is in there as we upgraded. Double
Nope.
grab on the wrist.
Right.
But the Boy Scouts were doing stuff in open water and lakes and rivers, and they didn't have
Right.
tubes, but they had the Boy Scout motto and the theme. And Aquatic shifted, well, Red Cross shifted so far from that with the new innovations. Not that the new innovations were bad, but it did take away a lot of our maybe morale. I mean, our swimming definitely decreased with the, as I call them, the bird bath pools. Um, and
I
you
call it
guys,
I call it the urgency.
the
Yeah.
urgency to go,
The,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I probably sound like I'm poo-pooing all the instruction and all the quality. To your point, I'm not. It's just there are gaps in urgency, in the attention to what happens when I'm teaching you and my name is signed to your certification and you leave me. What did I teach you that's in the book, and what could I have really defined so that when you make your first rescue and when you have your swim strokes and you have your tube, you're prepared not for just I check that box of that swim stroke or that. And again, not to poo-poo anybody, but I think we're all kind of saying the same thing, that there are some real missing marks in the attention or aggression, not aggression, energy towards it, enthusiasm even maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. God, I wish my body could do. I go to a doctor tomorrow for my back.
Does your lifeguard
But
that
I just miss teaching. I miss
bad?
knowing that, yes, there's a book you have to meet, and yes, there's principles you have to do, and all the checks and all the things and the CPR. But just seeing somebody pass the test and seeing the camaraderie of the other students in class rally around them, because I know it wasn't shortchanging anybody, because I didn't have a clock on me, because I didn't have to give up my room in an hour, and all the things that I think are interfering with what we're talking about.
Yeah, I've taught lifeguarding every year for decades, and I mean I love it.
Yeah.
I do. I love it more than swim lessons. It's way different than
Oh,
teaching CPR class. And you're giving them something that they can use forever. I mean, they can save their kids later, their grandkids later, whoever you want.
right.
So this next one, I'm going
Right.
to turn
Yeah.
it a little bit, and it's a tough question, and then we're going to do our final round of rapid fire questions. But this one, without naming names, I'll share the same story I told Tom when I saw him. Lifeguarding in general, it gets you emotionally ready more than it would for another job, with your critical thinking skills and your dynamic team. But last year here at our beach, we had a guy that didn't make it. And it wasn't, I mean, he did drown, but he had a medical emergency in the water. And the guards that saved him were brand new babies. I mean, they weren't babies, but they were 15, 16-year-old guards, first summer, just certified before Memorial Day weekend out on the beach. And that's what they dealt with. And then they continued to guard the rest of the summer.
Il Sura,
And
International Lifeguarding Critical Incident Response Team right there, baby.
that's
Sorry,
what
go
I
ahead.
told Tom about. So I thought we could talk about that and just listen to Tom's opinion from all his years of teaching, and really just for the whole audience, because I don't think that's ever mentioned. We don't even cover it in the lifeguarding book. I mean, obviously we cover that it happens and that blood and froth and foam may or may not come up, but you're going to guard, and that could be before Memorial Day weekend for you.
Dealing, I mean, a couple of things come to my mind.
Well, and on a positive note, we promise. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I remember when I was younger, it's like people, I mean, people like, how many, you go for an interview or whatever, and how many saves have you had? To me, it would be like if somebody said no saves, to me, that's like, all right, either they're doing a really good job or they're really lucky.
I want that pool, that's for sure. If there's no saves, yeah.
But I mean, being an athletic trainer, being an EMT, being a lifeguard as a kid, I've seen a bunch of stuff. And for your kids that had to live through the fact that they lost somebody and somebody drowned, that will be a life lesson that they won't forget. And as much as they had to go back and lifeguard again for the rest of the summer, and in my opinion, in one way that helps them prepare them to be a better guard in the future, both mentally to know that shit can hit the fan, and not in a way that they really expected being as young as they were, but it's the reality of the job. And I think having that experience drives that home. And at the same time, no matter what training we all did back when I was a kid, when you guys were kids, what training you do now, no matter how much urgency you have in your training, how good your training is, when something like that happens, and it's going to be the first time for a lot of people, you really can't prepare them psychologically. One, because everybody's different. Mm-hmm. But two, when you see a body, literally a body, or you see somebody that's struggling, and if they made it, I mean, that plays with your psyche one way, but if they didn't, like last year for you, mm-hmm. that plays in your psyche a whole different way. And not that one is good or bad or better. It just is a life lesson that as a lifeguard, yes, we try to teach that into it. You would like that to be in the training. You would like to prepare them through, videos, through, doing
stuff like this,
scenarios or whatever. And no matter how many scenarios you have, until somebody witnesses it in person, it's mm-hmm. just a concept.
It's a great.
So that's not a bust on any training. That is just reality.
That's spot on. I think you bring up a couple of big points that I'll quickly. One, the outcome may be less relevant, right? Did they die? Did they not die? The second thing is maybe it's not death, whether it's a nasty spill and fall on a cracked head, whether it's a missing child. Mm-hmm. So I think you did a great job, Tom, of not only understanding the scope, but also understanding what's next and that it's going to have to be dealt with. And the second thing is, so I do work with ILSERA, the International Critical Incident Response Group, and we do a thing called psychological first aid. Awesome. That didn't exist, right? We do debriefings in a manner that are really directed towards mental health and long-term support. That didn't exist. And so I think the other piece is understanding as lifeguards and lifeguard managers and supporters is what is critical, what is urgent, to your point again, right now. Mm-hmm. And is it getting back in the chair? Is it maybe not getting back in the chair? Is it having more help? So I guess my point is I think you're really, really hit the nail on the head with the idea that this is going to impact you. We cannot fully prepare you for it. What we can do is put more and more things in place to support you when it happens, because it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I'll go back all the way to the beginning and go to Nicole is, how many saves have you had? How many rescues you had? I used to keep track, 200, 300, and the deep end of this one. You know what I talk about now is what I missed. What I talk about now is when I told a kid to stop running and that kid did stop running, and now we had a head seizure and we had to put him in a vise. and a backboard because the bastard listened and he slipped and fell.
Right.
So I never tell a kid to stop running anymore. I say, please slow down. And I do 10 different things. But that wasn't even a rescue. But I can't talk about it now without getting visceral because it was just in it. Anyway, so my point is rethinking what is success, like you said. How many rescues? How many jumps? What have we learned? What can we do better? Anyway, so those are some of my takeaways. So, yeah.
That's a fantastic point of view. That's with what you're doing with the mental health and preparing them, maybe that's preparing them, but helping them afterwards, I think is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's one, I don't know. I can have a very loud voice. I have a very big mouth from a lot of people. I can bellow.
That's why you and I get along, maybe.
One of the things at the beach, the lakefront that I worked at, we had a dock. It was a wooden dock. Okay. And I could care less if they ran on the sand of the beach, but they would run on the dock and I would just bellow, walk. And I would just top of my lungs. Some kids would turn around, look at me and start crying. I'm like, good, the message got across.
Yes, sir. Received.
Some kids would look at me like, F you, and keep going. And they keep going and land on their face. But anyway.
You get the idea.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I lifeguard the same now as I did when I was 17. And I yell at people. I yell,
Sure.
walk. If it's across the pool, I remember lifeguarding here a few years ago, and they were having a swim meet or something. And I happened to be one of the guards on duty, and there were several guards. And where I was standing, I could see at the other end of the pool, and some kid just started running across the other end of the pool. And there was a mother standing next to me, like a foot away. And at the top of my voice, as loud as I could, I just yelled, walk. She turned to look at me like, why are you yelling in my ear?
Yes.
Because I'm doing my job. But
absolutely.
I just rang her bell. She was just like, what the blank is going on?
I've told many parents that it hurts my body much more physically to get out of this chair and discipline your child than it does for me to scream at your child. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take me a few minutes to my bumbly butt out of the chair. So why don't you just go yell at your kid for me, and it'll save my back pain.
Yeah, right.
And if mom, what do you mean? What are you in the chair? I said, I can jump. Don't get me wrong. I can jump in that water, but climbing down this ladder is a pain in my ass. So if you would just, anyway, yeah. But again,
yeah, we can go on.
Yeah. Good point, Nicole.
Well, I'm going to ask the last question, and then I'm going to answer it first and then let you guys, and then we'll do our closing. So I'm going to let each of you guys share a defining moment that shaped how you lead, teach, or view the role of a lifeguard. And I'm going to share mine, which kind of piggybacks off both of you guys. I guard the same way I did when I was 17, and my facility, we never had a drowning because we were that safe. But we were that safe because before I started working, we had 2 drownings. So we were an extra cautious facility. So when I started guarding, it was important and everybody cared. But we also had a crazy slide, and I had seen kids fall back onto the concrete and bust their head. So walk was something I always yelled. Not run because they hear run. I would yell walk, I would scream it. And whether I'm guarding today, when my kids were growing up, I was the swim instructor and the lifeguard coach, but the director would call me and ask me to guard anytime they were short. And of course, I'm happy to guard anytime. So I guard all the time, still guard today, but I guard just as I do now as I did then. And I would say what shaped me on how I lead and lifeguard and teach is all the importance that lifeguarding was in the very beginning. So I know, Wes, you're not teaching anymore, but Tom and I are still teaching. And to all the new teachers that are listening, you do make a difference when you're teaching a guard.
That's what I miss.
It's a big difference in that first class. And their first experience is never going to be the same, and you only have one first impression to make, and you can tell the guards that came from that, if you work where I do and you get guards that come from other facilities, you can tell if they work somewhere where there wasn't where they didn't care. Yeah,
you used to be able to tell by the guard by who their instructor was when they came to you. You could almost tell, oh, you had this such and such because you touched this way or you learned this trick.
So true.
Oh, I miss this. Yeah. Go. Any feedback there, Tom, or any standout
Uh,
moments in your career?
I guess one of the biggest moments that shaped my guarding and in a way how I taught was, I mean, I'm a fairly laid back guy, but when it comes to life saving, I'm a little more stern, but still, I took WSI. I started the class when I was 17, and this is in Culpeper, Virginia, where I grew up. And I was able to take the class because my tennis coach basically stood up for me, say, yes, he'll be 18, one, and he's, captain of the team. He's a respectable guy. He knows what he's doing. So there was an instructor that came down from DC to teach the class. And this guy was a stickler because WSI back then, not only were you able to teach swimming lessons, you also were able to teach life saving. And this guy was very particular and very stringent about your strokes, because if you're teaching swimming lessons, your strokes have to be just right. And that is breaststroke, freestyle, backstroke, side stroke. They didn't worry about butterfly. You don't use that a lot in life saving. But he was very particular. Well, and I went through the class, and I mean, I had taken life saving several times before, and I was good with, but he made sure my technique was right. The class was over before I turned 18, like 3 days,
Oh,
like 3 days before I turned 18. So
oof.
he would not sign it until I turned 18. He came back from DC to sign my paperwork so I passed WSI.
That's awesome.
And what that taught me, one, was he's a son of a bitch. That's enough. No,
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that out loud? No.
Did you maybe you already knew that though?
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
but it was the bigger point later in life was, if you're going to do it right. You can't cut corners, no matter how good the person is, no matter how well they did. If it says this is the way it's done, you do it that way. And
How you do one thing is how you do everything.
it's important. Now, I want to tell a story also that really has nothing to do with life saving, but it does have to do with life and respect and doing it right. I, I'm also, well, I'm not anymore, but I was an EMT in New Jersey. And when I moved to Indiana, I became an EMT. Well, the instructor was a paramedic, and when he taught the class, he would wear a tie. I was not a big tie wearer. And but he came to class, and I got to know him. We became friends, and after class we'd go out, whatever. And I was like, you don't have to wear a tie. We get it. And he said, no, the reason I wear the tie is to delineate that I am the instructor and you are the students. It wasn't I'm better than you. There is a delineation. And as much as we can be friends, when it comes to class, I'm the instructor, and this is the line, and this is where we have to keep it in class. And that taught me, that was huge in understanding the delineation of,
There's levels.
yeah, there's levels. And
Yeah.
there's sometimes you can cross them, but it's not necessarily in class. You might be friendly later,
Right.
but I am the teacher. And so that was a huge lesson as well.
So many parallels. Your tie was my khaki shorts. One of the lessons I learned was managers don't wear swimsuits.
Right.
If you're hired to be the manager on this pool deck today and you're representing this HOA or your partner or whatever, I don't care if you got done teaching swim lessons 5 minutes ago, and I don't care if you have your break in 90 minutes. You put on your khaki shorts, you put on your belt, you put on your polo shirt, and you go represent. And again, maybe to a parallel version of wearing the tie is the world doesn't care what
Right.
you did before and after. The world cares that you are in charge right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have told people where I have found them wearing their swimsuit underneath their khaki shorts, and I said, take it off. Well, I might, no. You are managing now. Go hang your suit up, put it back on. To the same, and I had to learn that lesson too, because my boss would call me out many times wearing my swimsuit on the deck, trying to be the deck supervisor, and so I had to walk through that reign as well. So I think that's very spot on. And then, real quickly, to your point of being very specific, a gentleman named Joel Schilling, he was a big Red Cross instructor, literally and figuratively for many years. He's passed away. But you always remember your first, and he was very deliberate with me when I was young, and had some certifications and was training classes and doing, thought I was hot shit. And he checked me and he reminded me, I don't have to do the work, Mr. King, you did. I don't have to pass the test, you do.
Right.
And I don't care how well you can do it yourself. If you can't get the other people in class, and that's why I'm so big on it 30 years later now, if you can't get the other people in class to do anything you're doing, then you're not a good teacher. You can be the fastest rescuer, you can sink to the bottom, you can hold your breath, but if the other 9 people in this class don't pass, it's on you now, Mr. King. I was like, yo, man, I'm just in lifeguarding. I'm just in LGI. I'm just, yo. Yeah, but you know this and you know that and you got this taken care of. So now the class is on you. And he would say that in front of the whole class. I ended up co-teaching with him. He became somebody I really looked up to. But to your point, I had to learn not only to check myself, but to understand what happens in that class around me.
Sure.
So as an instructor, I try to become very aware of whoever it was. So they didn't do what I did, but also represent everybody equally. Go, I don't care where you come from. I don't care what you're in class now, and we're going to get through it. So those are some of the things that put me through the fire a little bit. Oh, and last note, I love the fact that you say the shit can hit the fan. My phrase, and you can use this, is that's okay as long as the blades don't start spinning, there's no mess.
Oh.
So it gives you one extra level to get through. Hey, the shit hit the fan. Are the blades spinning? No, boss. Okay. We just have to throw away the fan then.
Right.
We don't have to clean the room. So it gives you one extra level to get through.
Very good.
You can steal that. Yeah.
Well, I love this episode. I appreciate you both for coming on with me tonight. It will be live very soon, and I'm going to wrap it up. So thank you for joining. Tom, thank you for getting on with us.
Thank you very much.
This is fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And congratulations to Trina and all the other people that filled out this survey. Nicole works really hard on this, so we're happy to have an audience, and please share and like and tell your friends.
Yes. So this episode is a reminder that guarding is more than a summer job. It's a responsibility. It's a calling and it's a culture. Thank you, Tom, for helping us raise the standard. And thank you, Wes. If you guys are listening and you're in a position of leadership, don't forget to reach out to Wes for more training. It's been a long night. And you guys can follow us, leave a review, and share episodes with a fellow guard, a manager, or a trainer who's out there. And take care. See you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Yep. Bye.
Bye.